would stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Roll call, please.
Craig. Here. Tommy.
Here.
Mike.
Yes.
Tom.
Here.
Mike McCormick.
Here.
And John.
Try that again, John.
John Callahan.
Here.
Thank you.
Here.
And our records will show that Erica Powers is absent.
Please excuse her as well.
Okay.
All right. I need a motion for the adoption of the agenda that you have before you this evening. Moore, second. George, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Time for comments from the audience. I have a couple that came in over or through the online aspect, and we have three that are here tonight locally. Mr. Arnie A.C. Dienoff, you can step forward, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, or members of the Board of Education. My name is Arnie A.C. Dienoff, and I am here as a public advocate and also running for the Board of Education on April the 6th. The first thing I'd like to address is I've addressed it 2 months previous, and I haven't heard any response from the Board of Education nor the administration. As you all know, we're in the middle of a COVID. Probably going to be rough during the next couple months until we do the vaccination. But I asked for a larger meeting facility. I don't understand why we're not spreading the meeting around the district and utilizing our very expensive auditoriums that would allow for good spacing and to allow that COVID doesn't be spread. I've asked that. I haven't heard any feedback. I haven't heard any discussion among board members, and that really kind of startles me and kind of puts up a red flag. Why wouldn't we want to do precautions and take safety measures to protect the public and our community? The next thing I'd like to talk about is the board packets. It would be nice if JB, the director of IT, or somebody else in administration would be more transparent with the public. And when you put those meeting notices up, those packets up, that people get an email that they can sign up for. You get those at the state level, you get them at the county level, and you get them at the city level. The president, Mr. Schwartzman, is on the Planning and Zoning Commission for the city of Wolf Island. He knows that if you sign up, you get the meeting packets immediately sent to your email, knowing that's been posted to the city's website, and you can go and digest and research and read the information. So you can come here prepared and know what's going on within the district. It's a good government practice, and it's something good to do. On the agenda is annexation of Flint Hill, and I'd like to ask, what is the goodness, or what type of benefit are we going to get by annexing the city of Flint Hill? They do not offer police services. They contract with county police, which would remain the same. They do not offer sewer, and they don't offer water. So I don't exactly understand what we're getting, that we're not getting benefit of services from unincorporated St. Charles County. So that's kind of startling that I see that on the meeting agenda. What do they have to offer to us to annex the property into the city of Flint Hill? Chapter 610 is there for a reason. And I've asked the board secretary, when she was employed by the district before she retired, to receive the superintendent's new contract along with his benefits and what he's being paid in terms of all the benefits, the fuel allowance, the car allowance, the expense accounts, the annuity, the medical benefits, and his salary. And I still haven't been given that. I talked to the superintendent about that a few months ago, and now the secretary is back in her position, and I'd like to have that information. I made a request a long time ago, and somebody here should be accountable and fulfill that request. The tax levy. I talked to the superintendent, and I guess he's backed off from 49 cents to 39 cents now. But I'd like to see a plan given to the community. This is just hastily rushed through without thinking it out. What is the course of action? What guarantees do we have that this is going to go to increase staff pay and staff retention? I don't see any increases that's written into this legislation that's going to be before voters if you pass it on April 6th. There's no community steering committee. There was no public input. There was no community involvement. Nobody asked me to serve on a committee and to go through the details and the nitty-gritty to see how this 39 cents is going to benefit the community, benefit the school district as a whole, property values, students, the staff. It should be your number one priority, your staff and students. And I want to see some guarantees, and I want to see a detailed plan. Somebody needs to sell me why you need the money. It's about transparency. And on the bond issue, which I guess we'll hear some discussion, again, there's no committee involvement. There's no committee process. I would love to volunteer and sit on that committee and go through the details and go through a scenario and see if the community, if our district really needs this facility increase for a bond issue, which you're going to put off to another. I'm sorry?
30
Oh,
seconds.
thank you. Appreciate that. And the pool proposal is very concerning. What is our priorities as a Board of Education in the community? Is it students? Is it to take care of the staff in the community? Or is it to build a pool and be like country club folk? I think we need to get our priorities straight here in this district. And I think that student education comes first and foremost over athletics and over a pool construction. I don't know if you want one pool or 4 pools. But I would ask you to take this all into consideration, and I'll just sum it up, Mr. Chairman, another 5 seconds here. I just asked that we have a steering committee, and I'd love to volunteer and be on that steering committee, because there's some important detailed questions that need to be asked before we ask for these huge increases on our property taxes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Rachel Damlow.
Hello, my name is Rachel Damlow, and I'm a 2nd grade teacher at Twin Chimneys. I'm the varsity dance coach at West High School, and I'm also a parent. Tonight I'm speaking to you as a coach and also a parent, because yes, my oldest is now on my dance team.
Oh my.
Yes, I know. Later on this evening, you will be making a very important decision about whether or not the varsity dance team from West will be allowed to attend the National Dance Team Championships in person. I know many think I'm crazy for even asking if we can go, but I'm really hoping that after you hear what I have to say, you'll be willing to approve my proposal. The competition is usually held the first weekend of February, but this year they have pushed it back to the end of April. When I originally wrote my proposal, I did not have the dates, the exact dates, but they have been released. They are April 22nd and 23rd, in hopes that more teams will be allowed to attend in person. I'm also very hopeful that by that time, many of us will be vaccinated. This competition is what the dancers and our parents look forward to year after year. It's the biggest and most important competition that we attend, and we are willing to do whatever it takes to be able to go and compete in person. If flying is too risky, we will be willing to drive down. Normally, the dancers stay with each other in hotel rooms, but since we can't sleep with our masks on, the dancers can stay with their parents in the hotel rooms, so we limit our exposure to one another when we are without our masks. All of my parents are wanting to go. Not one has expressed concerns about making the trip to nationals. They are willing to sign any type of waiver that would release any type of liability from the district. The competition itself is also making many different accommodations to make the competition as safe as possible. Hand sanitizer stations will be set up throughout the venue. Masks will be worn at all times except for the 2 minutes when they are on the floor performing. Outside eating areas will be available, so when we do eat, we can spread out and eat outside. Dancers will keep their masks on anytime we are together as a team and only take them off for the performances and when they are in the hotel rooms with their families. Any other guidelines that you would like us to follow, we will of course do so. The guidelines that are already in place are working. None of our varsity dancers, knock on wood, have tested positive for COVID. And the only reason we are even having to quarantine is because of classroom exposure. Dance is obviously not a contact sport. So our sport is much safer than other sports who come into actual contact with other athletes without a mask. We will never be in contact with any other athlete other than the ones on our team, and we will only be without our masks for the 2-minute performance times. Every other sport has been allowed to compete against other teams face to face. Nationals is our game. It's our districts. This is when we compete against the best. If you're still thinking that allowing us to travel out of state for an overnight trip is too risky, I beg you to think about what you're saying no to. I have 3 senior dancers who will never get a chance to dance at nationals again, and they've already had so many high school experiences taken away from them. I have a team who truly has the chance of being in the nation's top 10, even in the top 3. The last 2 years we placed 4th in hip hop, and in 2018 we won, and this team is even stronger. I also ask that you please think about the mental health of these athletes. Dancing is their passion. It's what they live for. They give up so much of their time to be able to compete at the national level, and for that to be taken away would be devastating. So much has already been taken away from them. Please don't add nationals to the list. I really don't think that these kids could take any more disappointments. Again, I promise we will follow any and all guidelines to keep our dancers safe. We just want to give these dancers what they've been working so hard for. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Dana Asher?
Good evening. I'm Dana Asher. I'm a resident and an employee in the district. I'm also president of the FZEA. I appreciate that the comments window has been changed from 3:30 to 5:30 to allow comments to be put in and printed, and I appreciate that last month all of the ones that we had at the certain point that they were printed were read out loud. I appreciate that greatly. I do wish that the meeting was moved to one of the high school auditoriums. I understand that some feel it would be riskier, but it's not riskier than our school day. I do believe there would be safer as we would have more room for people to spread out, multiple entrances, etc. Many people feel that not moving the meeting is designed to keep them from attending. I understand that's not it, but it's how it comes across. Please consider moving the meetings to one of the high school auditoriums. Thank you.
All right, and I had 2 comments that came in over the internet. First one is from Heather Brannon of O'Fallon. I was wondering why at West Middle there are 4 kids to each table at lunch when they are supposed to be 6 feet apart. And Cindy Perkins, also from O'Fallon. Regarding COVID protocols, what steps are being taken to look at the data to support allowing those on modified quarantine to participate in after-school activities, such as sports? If a student can attend class and sit less than 6 feet away due to space constraints and sit at lunch without a mask, is there that much of a risk in sports, band, etc.? I would ask that the board work in conjunction with the health department to look at the data, and if less than 1% of kids actually get COVID while exposed and put on modified quarantine, then the current protocol needs to be reviewed and amended. Also, other school districts in St. Charles County follow CDC protocols and that changed in December, and allow a student to test negative and then return after 10 days. The mental health of our children is just as important as their physical health. By not allowing those on modified quarantine to still participate in activities is having a bigger impact than we realize. As a parent of a student athlete who spends countless hours preparing for competitions, I see the potential for long-term mental impacts if they continue the current protocols. This absolutely must be a data-driven decision for the health and safety of our children. But I would strongly ask that this be reviewed as soon as possible for the welfare of our kids. Thank you for your time. All right. Those are all the comments that I have this evening. I need a motion for us as we move forward to accept the consent agenda with the addendums that you received tonight. I'm in second, please. George, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Moving on to financial reports, Mr. Orr, if you could run through your financial report summary, please.
Members of the board, I direct your attention to my monthly financial summary, which pulls together the financial statement, investment schedule, revenue report, expenditure report for the month. Monthly fund balances for December totaled $89,051,529.86. Of that amount, $24.9 million was reserved for debt service, $9.6 was reserved for capital projects from bond proceeds, leaving $54.6 million, for operations. As shown on the investment schedule, $70 million was invested at the end of the month. Revenues for December totaled $91,336,851.15. This is by far one of our largest and is typically our largest revenue receipt for the month, since we get the bulk of our tax revenue in December. As shown on the revenue report, this was comprised of $84 million from local sources, $5.1 million from state sources, and $2.2 million from federal sources. Revenues for the year running ahead through December by $3.6 million in total. The majority of the changes related to property tax collections that make up $6.9 million of that increase. Property tax revenues in December budget were expected to increase by $3.2 million compared to last year's actuals, I believe. So, which I still believe to be a good estimate, and I think it might be a little on the high side as far as the budget's concerned. But anyway, I do expect that the remainder of that 6.9 that we got in property taxes will be offset. We'll continue to, our future revenue collections will be lower, and so we'll still end up pretty close to what's in the budget, I believe, when it's all said and done. Prop C revenues continue to be very strong and are running about $427,000 more than last year at this time. I know at one point we talked about sales tax may drop off, but it's still remaining strong. It's a statewide sales tax, so I guess people are still buying groceries even if they're not going out to eat as much. So, sorry, increases in property and sales tax revenues were partially offset by $4.3 million in reductions from other local sources. These reductions were driven down by lower interest earnings, lower food service receipts, and reduced student activities, as we have discussed in previous reports. State revenues are also down by $2.3 million in total for the year due to the state withholdings, and federal revenues are actually running ahead by 2.9. The majority of this increase was from federal stimulus money. It's about $2.2 million in stimulus funding, and the remainder is attributed just to some timing of payments. So sometimes we'll get paid some money a little earlier or a little later, but it should all work out to be about the same. I know we talked in the past about the federal government's picking up the slack on our food service revenue, which is partially offset why we're seeing a negative in our local food service revenue. It's being picked up in federal as part of that increase as well. Expenses for the month of December totaled $18,451,262.53. As shown on the expense report, payroll-related expenses totaled $16.3 million for the month, purchase services $0.9 million, supplies $0.7 million, and construction and capital about $400,000. Overall, expenses are running behind last year by about $7 million. The majority of this decrease is related to capital projects which were funded by bond proceeds from previous years. Right now, our accounts for about $5.4 million of that $7 million reduction. Salary and benefit costs are running less by about 1%, or around $600,000, and this is a bit skewed. As we look at, as you know, you guys know this is a very unusual year. So as we look at salaries and benefits, our certified salaries are up by $780,000 or 2.1%, and that's more with where we would expect to see our salary increases at. But at the same time, our support staff expenses are now down by $950,000, which is largely due to unfilled vacancies. We also had some offset because some of our, as you guys know, our extracurricular activities are not going on for after school. So some of those are not filled as well, which has driven down some of that cost. Additionally, supplies and expenses are also lagging behind last year at this time by about $536,000. And those are mainly in categories which we've also discussed in previous reports: grocery from reduced food service, electricity's down, and technology. I think the reduced facility usage is helping keep some of our utility costs down. And technology, I know JV's having a hard time getting some of goods that were ordered delivered in any kind of time. There's, instead of a couple of weeks, sometimes it's months in lag time. So we think maybe some of those expenditures may pick up later on in the year, but right now this is where we are.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any questions from Mr. Orr regarding the financial summaries that he's presented tonight? If there are no questions, I need a motion to approve.
Evans.
Thank you. Second? Mr. George, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. Old business, facility planning. Dr. DeBrey, if you want to walk us through that.
Yeah, I just want to bring you up to date. We have one major project going on. It's our Professional Development Center over on Tom Ginnever Boulevard, just west of North High School. Project's coming along well. Windows were going in yesterday and today. So it won't be long and we'll have that completely in the dry, which will allow people to go on and work even with the bad weather that may still be coming. They've done some more blacktopping, and that part of the parking lot closer to North High has all been blacktopped, and it's been striped for parking. I think the workers will be using that area as they continue on the building proper, and then the area right next to the building to the west, they'll start working on that parking lot. So it's coming along very well. Most of the steel studs are in. As far as the offices and the big presentation area. So I think we're looking really good there. We were hoping to be in the dry by about this time so that when there is more bad weather, they'll be able to continue working inside. So I think we're right on target with having that completed early summer. So any questions at all?
No questions? It's a beautiful facility.
Yeah, it's gonna be
What I've
nice.
Seeing so far.
It's going to be very nice. Jen's looking forward to it with the curriculum staff.
So last month we had discussion regarding a possible tax levy and a bond issue, and we tabled those discussions so that we would have time for the administration to research that a little more and crunch some numbers. Dr. DeBrey, you're bringing those back to us tonight, so if you could on the next item with the tax.
Yeah, I've got a revised memo that was to the board in the agenda that made a recommendation on a tax increase. And first of all, I want to start off and say, guys, the position we're in right now is completely driven by the state not living up to their agreement. They had appropriated about another $7 million for the school district. Between the foundation formula and the classroom trust fund, which is the gambling money. And the governor at the end of last fiscal year and at the beginning of this fiscal year cut about $5 million. And then we lost $2 more million from the classroom trust fund because the gambling areas weren't open. Now they've reopened, but they only have limited access to them. So I think we'll continue to see a drop in that revenue. We're very fortunate that the sales tax has stayed up. I don't know how that works because with so much of the economy shut down, I mean, if it wasn't probably for online purchasing, I think we would really, really have some problems. But so this is created by the state, and I will tell you something, guys. I am astounded as I look at what is being proposed for the legislation. Nobody's talking about this money that was taken from the schools. Nobody's saying, well, as we get more revenue than what we're experiencing or expecting, we'll come back and take care of those school districts that expected this money. We expected that money. It was appropriated for us. And now when they come up with some more money, they've just released some money the other day to the higher ed. So I don't know, to me, one of the worst words in the English language is renege. When you make a promise to somebody and then you renege on it, at least you try to get back and make good on it at some time. That doesn't look like it's in the cards. Right now, the best thing we can hope for is maybe some stimulus money coming from the federal government. But guys, any stimulus money we get from the federal government is not a recurring revenue. It's a one-time shot. So if we get $5 million, there's nothing to say we're going to get that in the future unless the state appropriates that money for the foundation formula. That is how money is paid out to the schools. So I think just to start, this is not our making. We've dropped all the way down to 10.7% in the operating fund, the balances there. We're starting to get perilously close to that 3% level, which makes you a stressed school district. And you never want to get there because then the state takes over your budget. You guys would not make the decisions anymore. It'd be the state. So we cannot get there. So, nobody's talking about massive layoffs or anything like that at this point, but we have frozen salaries for next year. And hopefully we'll get some money here from maybe the stimulus money that you all can make an exception to our contingency language, and we can get our staff some salary increases. Won't be a lot, but it'll be something. But what we're doing with this money is replacing what the state has taken away from us. And like I said, I'm astounded that they haven't taken a look at how they're going to make good on a promise that they made last year and the beginning of this year.
Dr. Bray, if I may too, and I know you're presenting, but I have to say this because I want to, if there's any of our other elected officials that are watching this meeting, we have 18,000 students. That's a pretty good representation of the families that voted to elect them and put them in office at the state level. And this whole thing about public education seems to be this time around has become very politicized. And they're talking different things about moving money different ways. And by doing exactly what you're talking about is hurting the very item that is written into the state constitution, and that is public education. So I'm telling all of our parents, our teachers, our administrators, our students, and the parents of those families, contact your legislators. If you need to know who they are, let me know. I'll let you know who they are because some of them are friends and I continue to bend their ears. But I think that we're going to have to make sure they understand that this is an important subject, and we don't want to just continue to ring a broken bell or something. So just as a reminder, this is a serious thing. And so what it's doing is it's causing us now to come back to the public, to the local people and say, hey, we're going to have to raise your taxes in order to pay our staff to educate your students. The legislature needs to buck up and take care of this. So sorry.
Yep. No, you're right on, Mike. So at any rate, our balance is getting precarious, and we need to stop the bleeding. And one of the ways to do that is what is relatively a small tax increase. We were talking 49 to 59 cents last time. It was expressed that, hey, we don't know what the economy is going to do. So Jeff and I sat down and talked about what might be something that we could live with, and 39 cents seems to be the bare minimum. It'll raise about 10.6 million. It'll allow us to give some modest increases, but it'll also allow the budget to start healing. We need to stop the bleeding and get back into what the board goal is, which is 12 to 15%, so that we're comfortable with not being held hostage all the time by how the state's gonna act. So that's where we've come down on is 39 cents. Right now, the average county tax levy is $4.98. The 5 school districts in St. Charles County, we are at $4.84. So we're below the county average. It would certainly justify us looking for more money that we can use towards our staff and towards the operations of the school district. I think it just stops the bleeding, and then next year will be a reassessment year. Maybe things will look a little better. Hopefully we can put enough pressure on our state legislators that they do deliver on what they promised to us in the past. I mean, when you run our factors through the foundation formula, we are supposed to get $56 million. That's where we're at. Wentzville School District is getting $70 million because of the factors in this foundation formula. And that should not be ignored. It should not be ignored. public education is how our state gets forward. It's not private education. It's not charter schools. It's not open enrollment. It's good public schools that are educating the public in the Fort Zumwalt School District and having those kids go on and do good things for our society. So, with that said, I don't know if Jeff wanted to add anything, or if you have any questions for Jeff. He and I have met and tried to come to a point that we thought we would be able to recommend.
If I can ask real quick, I think this is a really, really important topic. Are we still on?
Yeah, we are still on. In fact, John is still on, but we've lost his video feed just on the TVs. He's still coming across in the YouTube feed, and everybody can still see him. So I'm trying to figure out how to fix that piece of it, and we can still hear him. So
Okay.
Mr. Rohr, do you have any comments?
I was just gonna maybe follow up with, I gave you guys a handout that kind of showed the major operating revenues that we have, and really, we have two main sources, and one's basic formula and one's property taxes. And as you can see by that handout, our basic formula revenues are, for the most part, flat. We get about 9 million a year in federal too. That's been flat for years. That's about a consistent number across the board. When the state passed a new foundation formula, they couldn't fund it. So they had a 7-year phase-in period. Then the economy collapsed. Then they couldn't fund it for years after that. And then they modified the formula to make it more palatable and affordable for the state. And now every time we turn around, it took them, then they still had to continue to phase it in. So about the year before last, I think, is when they considered it fully funded at the modified level. But I mean, right now, we're not seeing, like Dr. DeBray said, any movement, any rumors that they're gonna consider funding, giving us back what we've lost. And we sure don't know what they're gonna do going forward. But as you can just see by the history here, we're not seeing any kind of upward trend in our basic formula revenue. So the only place we have to go is local property taxes. That's the only place that we see any kind of area for movement that we have any control over at all. So that's really all I have to say. And like I said, Dr. DeBray hit the nail on the head. If we get any stimulus money, it's one-time money. It's just gonna plug a hole and it's not gonna continue. So every year we have, if salary increases are awarded, they compound on top of each other. You know, you give a raise this year, it's $2 million or $4 million. That's there to start next year. Then when you give a raise, it's on top of that and on top of that. So, you know, I mean, expenses continue to go up, and we're not seeing a lot of movement in where we're going to get additional revenue. And we're already at the 10% mark on our fund balance. So we have to get money here somewhere. I mean, I just don't see us getting through another year without having to do at least short-term borrowing. If this doesn't pass, we may have to anyway, because we won't get this money. Even if we do put this out there and it passes, we won't get this money until the middle of December. We still may have to borrow because we might not have sufficient balances by the time we get into next year to get us through before we get our tax money. So we may have to issue some tax anticipation notes, and just realistically, we've been able to manage our cash flow, but we're getting low in our balances where we're going to have to get an infusion somewhere.
Yeah, if we would increase taxes by 39 cents, it amounts to about $9 a month on a $150,000 home, $12 on a $200,000 home, and $16 a month on a $257,000 home, which is the average residence in the Fort Zumwalt School District. So I don't know. I mean, I've done this probably 7 times before as a superintendent. During our heyday when we were growing so much to try to keep up with things. And I would just as soon do anything but come back with another one of these at this point in my career. But we got to stop the bleeding, and it's not our fault. It's very clear that it's been caused by the outside entity, and we need to start getting ourselves back where we need to be. I would also point out that next year is a reassessment year. And no matter what we pass, the levy will be rolled back a degree. And I don't know what that's going to be, but it'll be several cents. And that's just due to the law on reassessment. So That's pretty much it, guys.
Any questions for Dr. DeBrey?
I have a few. Jeff, the operating balance, historical balance, this includes the impact that we have from the state withholding $7 million, correct?
Correct.
So in the last 3 years, with COVID included, our operating balance has dropped by 1.2%.
Right, yes.
Out of the 100, right?
Right.
So in the 3 years previous to that, it dropped 6 points. This doesn't necessarily tell the story that we're suddenly hurting solely because of COVID money being withheld.
No,
We've been on a downward trend for a while.
we have been on a downward trend somewhat, yes. We added a lot of staff. We've had some salary agreements that were put in place and tried to work on salaries, and that's kind of where we're at. We knew we were deficit spending somewhat, a little bit on intentionally. Just try and get our salaries up and make them more competitive. We had to add staff. So that was part of the last tax levy increase, was to add staff and improve technology as well as try and move towards a 1-to-1. So,
Just to continue, the 39 cents would help close the costs or the impacts associated with the state withholdings, would also give movement and a use of modest salary increase, which we would have to determine during negotiations, correct? But it wouldn't address kind of the larger issue we have with our salary schedule, which has been pulling our teachers or our certified staff to the bottom end of the county. And we still have to figure out how we address that, and this money would not be enough for that.
no, this would not.
So this is more of a comment for everybody here other than a question, but as I would much rather see us look at what we can actually do to fix our salary schedule and what that actually costs and have some kind of guarantees built into that than passing something that we know we're going to have to come back to the community in very short order and potentially do again. If we're going to ask for money, I'd like to ask for the right amount and not have the expectation that we're going to be asking again in a couple of years. That's all I have. Thank you.
Comments?
One comment, yeah, I agree, as we were talking about, last time we were talking about 49 to 59 cents, and then seeing that it was brought down to 39 this time. I was thinking that even before we got into the numbers, before Tom was saying that should we be going for more, and I'm not a fan of tax increases at all, just like what you said, we don't want to be in a position to do that, but if we find ourselves in that position due to continued pitfalls within the state not funding the way that they should, then I agree with Mr. Emmons that we should possibly look at not doing just the bare minimum. If we're going to have to go back and ask it in another year or two, again, maybe we should try to really fix it now. And I would agree with that.
I agree with you, and I am never in favor of raising taxes. And I've done it a couple times, and it is painful. But there's also possibly an option. You know, one thing you don't want to do is go to the public when they're also struggling through health and job loss, you know,
Sure.
and asking them to pay more. But there may be, and Dr. DeBrey or Jeff, you may want to speak to this, but I know that by a vote to the public, we can move some money out of our debt service into our general obligation funds, maybe to help compensate some of this tax increase. How much room might we have if we were to do something like that?
Well, of course, it depends on a bond issue later on, because you're gonna add more debt
Right,
to your existing
and
debt.
we're talking about that, and that's why I include that in your
Yeah,
calculations.
But, you know, it's how you structure it. I mean, where you put the principal. I mean, the interest you always have to pay, but the principal maybe can go further off. And I don't know, it could be that, you know, hopefully in a couple of years, maybe 15, 20 cents, you might be able to move that out. As the assessed valuation grows, the existing levy brings in more. So, I mean, that's probably, and that, that doesn't increase taxes, it just changes the distribution.
Because by law, we're restricted from using debt service in our general obligation.
Yes, unless the board votes to move it to a operating fund. So that is certainly a possibility down the road, but again, that dictates how you structure your debt and so on and so forth. That's possible.
Well, I mean, at this point, we are beyond our nineties heyday, or the 2000 heyday, when we did so much growth. So, I mean, we've got a lot of square feet that we gotta maintain now. So there is a huge expense in that respect, but I would be more for moving some of the money out of debt service than hitting our taxpayers for another additional 10 or 15 cents on top of what we're already asking. I mean, it's just discussion at this point, right? So,
So I guess question then, if this board chose to delay this, we would have the opportunity, I believe, this is the question, to sit down, come up with what exactly is needed, not just for our own funding, but also to change the game on our certified staff and the schedule, the cost that would be associated with that, and then represent this for taxpayer vote this summer, right? The money would not change as far as timing if they approved it. I mean, because listen, the other side of this is, I like to put an end to the idea that our certified staff is just trying to tread water with the other districts. We could actually have an opportunity here to change the way our schedules work potentially, or to present something that really does move our staff ahead. If it makes sense to do so.
yeah, I don't know what those numbers are. Jeff, you may need to speak to that, but that $7 million from the state would definitely be helpful in that respect.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You're talking,
it could be upwards of $8 to $9 million for, like, if you moved all of our staff onto a similar step that would be close to, say, Francis Howe's probably one of the leaders in the area or that we would be most closely compared to. It would probably cost us another $9 million a year to do that. So you also have to consider that whatever work we've done on a salary schedule, there's no guarantee that that would ever be approved and implemented. I mean, it would have to be a negotiated item. So there's still a lot of sticking points from where we currently are and even to a mock kind of an ideal schedule that what, we would maybe want in a way that there could be a lot of distance still between those 2 points, and we may never get approval in a negotiation to even, and what the plan would be to move people over. So, I mean, there could just,
We
I feel
definitely,
like we could be a long way off from that. I understand what you're saying about if we got there, we need money to do it, but I can't even see us getting there potentially. I mean, there's just a lot of
I mean, to your point, like, I realize we're not there now. We passed this, we're not gonna get there because money isn't gonna be there for it. There's no point in really addressing it. Right? We're kind of in this, almost this chicken and an egg situation.
Kind of.
Where we have to pick one or the other. We do have an opportunity to sit down, have those discussions, see if there is an option or a possibility for approval, right, and negotiated approval. Take that and then go back to our taxpayers and say, this is what we actually need to fund this district in these times. Right? Because I look at it and say, listen, whether we ask the public for $1 or $100, us going to them and saying we're gonna take more money out, it's about as big of a role that we have. And we should do that with as much guarantee as possible. This is exactly how it's going to be spent. It's going to be spent in a manner that produces the kind of district that they expect. I believe all the numbers are here, no question about any of those. But I do think that additional planning at this time would be warranted.
When is the deadline for filing for the ballot for April?
The 26th of January. This is the last school board meeting that you can take action and put that on the ballot.
And the next general election would be
August.
Does that change anything as far as when we would receive the money, as Mr. Emmons said?
No, if it passed, it would be potentially a lot more expensive for us to put a ballot measure on August. We would probably have to fund more of the cost, but no, if it passed in August, we don't set our rate until September, so 1st of October anyway. So yeah, it would still be approved in time for us to set the levy.
It would cost about 60,000, 80,000, somewhere in there.
It depends on how many other ballot measures are on the ballot, so. It's divided, the cost is split across all ballot measures, so it depends. There's typically fewer in August.
Yeah, the salary schedule that is currently in place right now is agreed to by FZEA and the Board of Education. That salary schedule is there. It would have to be, you would have to negotiate a new salary schedule in a couple of months. And then I mean, it's gonna be more than 39 cents to put on the ballot. And who knows what the economy's gonna be like then. So, I mean, the choice of at least putting 39 cents on and having enough money to start, stop the bleeding, start recovering our budget, and also give a modest increase, which you would still have to make an exception for, because right now, the only language is a contingency language that says we have to get to 12% by June 30, 2021. If you're not there, it's freeze next year. If the tax increase passes, we know we're gonna have money in December. And under those circumstances, I'd recommend to you that you make an exception and give movement on the salary schedule for the staff. And then next year, we have a reassessment year. We should have a little bump in revenue at that point. And, start working on this thing. But I hear where you're coming from.
I'm afraid if we hold up at this point and not put any credence to the numbers that you and Jeff had already worked out and try to put we're gonna miss out on the opportunity really to have a good shot at passing this. And I don't wanna see the staff be frozen. I really like to see them. And this is a great opportunity for us to get this before the voters and hopefully be able to put some money back in the bank to bring our.
And I think it's understandable on the part of the voters. I mean, we've been given a bad deal here by the state. And we need to recover a little bit. This would help do that. I hear where everybody's coming from. I do think, guys, that trying to negotiate a new salary schedule and pay for that sucker is gonna be a lot more difficult than you think.
Well, especially in the times that we're in right now in the midst of a pandemic where people are losing their jobs.
Yeah.
That would be my concern. I mean, a lot of us here are employed, but there's a lot of people that I know that aren't.
Yep.
Mike, what do you think changes between now and August? Between April and August?
Regarding what?
Regarding our ability to pass a 39-cent tax levy?
Well, first of all, I know that it's gonna be hard to get anybody in August. You're gonna have a very, very, very low voter turnout. So you're either gonna way pass or way fail.
I would like to add one
And then
other
you have to
point
have
here.
67%, I think.
So if you don't put it on April and you wait till August, we can't give raises. There could be no exception. Because without it passing, you don't know if it's gonna pass in August. You could not, if it passes in April, as Dr. DeBray said, he could see recommending, let's implement the salary schedule, give them a step anyway, even though our current language is frozen. You won't be able to do that. You'll have to wait till August and then backdate everything if that's even feasible at the time. So, but at that point, I mean, I'm just saying it
then
kind of
you're
throws a
also-
wrench into some things.
And then you're also proposing bringing more than 39 cents to the voters.
Well, I don't know that you are. What you're proposing is saying that we're gonna spend the time and the diligence to tell the voters exactly what is needed and what it's gonna be used for.
Well, I think they just told us that. We've had all month to go through that. I mean, this conversation came up 30 days ago. So how many more months do we need to realize that we're $7 million in the hole and that our staff needs an increase?
I think our staff does need an increase. I think our staff needs a solution that resolves this for the foreseeable future.
I agree.
And
I also think that we should all not have to wear masks and we should be able to hug each other when we see, kids get to hug their teachers. Right now, it's just not possible. And there might be a time when that changes for us. And again, in a year or two, then maybe we can move 15 cents over from debt service. And then a year or two after that, we go back to the voters and we can try to fix this. I just don't think that right now, it's probably too much of a bite to chew at this point. That's all I'm saying. It's just my opinion. We all have one.
So
where do we stand?
I'm recommending 39 cents for an election April 6th due to the loss of revenue from the state.
That's your recommendation?
That's my recommendation.
I need a motion to approve.
Just a point of order, just my question on order. I'd like to make a motion, and do I do that now, or do I do that?
Well, he's got a recommendation. I'm asking for a motion. You can make a motion to approve, and if you say no, then we can disapprove, or, so, did you want to make a motion?
So I would like to make a motion that we move our potential tax levy to the August timeframe, using the next couple of months to decide and determine exactly what is needed to support not just our current fiscal challenges, but also a salary schedule that would move our teachers forward, would resolve this into the future.
Okay, so the recommendation is a 39 cent for April. The motion is for us to table that recommendation for a few months to decide if we want to go to the August election. Is that correct?
Yes.
I need a second. Someone needs to second it, and then we can vote on it.
I think it just dies, right?
Well, we can also vote it down too.
A second for his
Recommendation for Tom's.
I think it dies for lack of a
Does
second.
it? Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
So then that motion dies. All right. I need a motion, and I guess somebody else make a motion based on the recommendation that Dr. DeBrey spoke of regarding a 39 cent increase on the April ballot.
I move for approval of the 39 cent.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll
Callahan.
hand.
Thank you. I need a second. George. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
You need a roll call, or are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, I think.
I don't know. Yeah, next item.
The next item was a bond issue recommendation. And what I'm recommending is that we postpone that bond issue that was originally scheduled for April 2021. It was foreseen in the last strategic plan. There were 4 bond issues. This is the last of that, but I don't want to muddy the waters with the tax increase in there. I think it would be likely that one would pass, the other would fail. So I would like to postpone the bond issue until August, but the board doesn't have to decide until the May board meeting to put it actually on the ballot. So you got time. We'll flesh out what the project should be and the final amounts. You won't have to vote. You won't have to vote on putting the bond issue on until the May meeting. John's having a vapor lock or something over there. And the only thing I would point out is that in August, the bond issue will require 2/3 vote, 66 2/3. And it may be more expensive depending on what other jurisdictions have items on the ballot. But we have plenty of time on that one.
Is that something that could be, well, never mind. I didn't know if there'd be a November election this year, but.
I
I
believe,
don't know that there would be.
I believe there is. But any other election other than the April election on a odd numbered year, which is 2021, any of those will require 66 2/3. On an even numbered year, you also can get 57% on August and November as well as April. And in April, every year is 57%. So it's a little bit of a quirk. So I have a recommendation that I would like to postpone the April 21 bond issue until a later date.
Do you have in mind what, May, you say? You want to bring it back to the board in May?
Yes.
So, okay,
Yes.
so you want to make that part of the recommendation?
Yes.
I need a motion to approve tabling this discussion regarding the bond issues until the May board meeting. Moore, second?
George.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I don't think he meant.
Okay.
I think there might be a lag too.
There might have been a lag, yes.
All right, new business, Dr. Bray.
All right, first item under new business is the refinancing of a Series 2014 bond issue. And Jeff Orr will introduce some of our consultants, and you'll be pleased with the results.
Tonight we have Stephanie Vogt from Gilmore and Bell. She's the person with all the papers of the phone books that we all have to sign and go through. And Lorenzo Boyd, he's with our underwriter with Steve Nicholas, and I'm gonna, I guess, turn it over to Lorenzo to kind of go through. What?
I'm just kidding.
Now, I know he likes the grandstand, so I would have been shocked if he didn't want to talk. But this, you guys, we talked about refinancing these bonds, and they were actually went out and priced this morning, so that's what he's going to talk about, how well we did in the market.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Dr. DeBray. My name is Lorenzo Boyd with Stiefel, and I guess you guys can see I've grown my quarantine beard, so it's looking pretty nice now. But as Jeff mentioned today, we sold a little over $10 million to refinance the school district's 2014 bonds. There are about $10.9 million of bonds that were outstanding. They had a call date of 3/1/2021. We were able to refinance those bonds. Those bonds had a final maturity of 2026, so they only went out 5 years into their maturity. So what we sold today was kind of what we like to call a match maturity refinancing, where the new bonds will also have a 2026 final maturity. And I was pleased to say that doing this financing, we sold a little over $10 million. We got about $11.3 million in orders. So we were able to lower interest rates about 2 basis points or 1 basis point on each one of those maturities through 2026. We received new orders too, what I'd like to see whenever we bring a transaction to the market for any client. Northern Trust, they've never bought Fort Zumwalt bonds before, so they were purchasers of these bonds. And actually, First State Bank of St. Charles actually bought some of the school district's bonds, which in the past, well, from what I've seen, they haven't bought some of Fort Zumwalt's bonds in the past before, so they were new purchasers to the school district. We also went through the underlying rating process. The district was affirmed as AA3, which still keeps you, by Moody's, still keeps you in that top 25% of all school districts that are rated in the state of Missouri. And final savings total almost $1.5 million, so over the course of the next 5 years. That's in the debt service fund, so I think the actual savings was $1,436,286, which is almost $300,000 a year over the next 5 years. And as you can see, interest rates are at an all-time historic lows. The 5-year bond is right now at 0.47%, so that's under 0.5% 5-year bond. The 10-year bond is, just a little over 1%. So it's a great time to enter the market, great time for savings, and all these savings going to your debt service fund. And we're set to close in February. So I think that's it, and I think we have a resolution to actually pass before we make it official and closed on February 4th.
Those are amazing numbers.
Nice.
Amazing numbers.
Oh, and one other thing I did forget too, whenever I was telling Dr. DeBray and Jeff, whenever you do a current refunding, you hope to save at least 2% on the transaction. That's your goal, to get 2% savings. This saved 12.9%, so almost 13%. So we're 6 times what we consider a goal whenever we get into the market. So we're very pleased with that result.
In your board packet, you have all the resolution, the bond purchase agreement, all that stuff is in there. So the final numbers you have in a handout. So this handout shows you the final numbers that you're given. So
Fabulous. Any questions for Lorenzo? Mr. Boyd is here to answer your calls. Nope. Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
well, I guess we need a motion to approve the resolution. We don't need to read that resolution, do we? It's in our record.
no, it's huge. You don't. I don't think you want to do that.
Be here till 9 o'clock.
I didn't write it.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie.
You can ask Stephanie to. She's the bond counsel.
Yeah. All right, I need a motion to approve the resolution to refinance the Series 2014 bond as presented by Mr. Boyd. Mr. McCormick, second, please. Mr. George, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I should slow down. Unanimous aye, I believe, yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lorenzo.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Stephanie.
All right. Next item of business is our board member election on April 6, 2021. And this afternoon at 5 o'clock, we close the registration for the school board members, and we have 5 school board members, school board candidates. Tommy George, Arnie Dienoff, Mike McCormick, Daniel Hogan, and Gabe Helms. Those will be, in that order, will be the candidates for 2 3-year terms. And in your agenda is well, no, this was passed out. Tammy passed this out a little earlier. So we have the 5 candidates on there. I'm not going to read the resolution. I'd recommend that you would approve that resolution so we can notify the election authority of those candidates.
Hey, go ahead.
Make a motion.
Mr. Moore, second. Mr. Emmons, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right. Next item is a resolution for the April 6, 2021 tax levy, which we anticipated that you would take action on. So if you look in your agenda under the tab for tax levy resolution, you'll notice that we are proposing that levy be entitled Strong Schools. And I need you to take action, a motion and a second, and a vote to place this item on the ballot April 6th, 39-cent tax increase.
I need a motion to approve the resolution for the April 6th tax levy. George, second.
Callahan, second.
We'll give it to Mr. Callahan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next
All right,
item.
very good. City of Flint Hill has contacted me and asked for the district to voluntarily annex into the city. There's not a great deal of advantage to do that, and there's not a great deal of advantage not to do that. It will continue to be St. Charles County Police. It will continue to be the Wentzville Fire Protection School District. It'll continue to be the St. Charles County cleaning the roads out there by our school. I talked to their attorney about what their point was. One, I think they would like to have a school named after that city within their city limits. And 2, they want to have within their city limits any of the land that they can get in there. So if we don't approve it, or if the board doesn't approve that, they're likely to vote us in anyway. Kind of a hostile, one of those hostile annexations. He was very nice. He just said that, we just feel like it's important to have your school named after the city within city limits. And it'll be a friendly annexation, and it'll keep them from having to spend money to vote us in, so
So would they have left us alone if it was McCormick Elementary?
probably. You've probably been okay.
Probably, yeah.
So I see no reason to not be cordial with them and stay on a good basis. So I
What's the
recommend that
mailing
you
address
approve
out there? Do we call it Flint Hill, Missouri, or?
it. The mailing address wouldn't change.
Okay, it is Flint Hill then.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of cities want to keep contiguous property, so if they need to expand beyond there, they can say it's adjoining property.
Correct.
And so that might help them out too in the future, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I need a motion to approve the recommendation to allow a voluntary annex to Flint Hill Elementary into Flint Hill, Missouri. Thank you, Mr. George. Second, Mr. McCormick. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Finally,
All right. Well, not quite finally, but close to finally. Our West High girls dance.
no, that's what I'm talking about. Finally, for Rachel's sake.
Oh, finally. Well, she probably enjoyed staying around.
I did.
Okay. West High School's dance team has requested to go to nationals, as they have now for several years in a row. Mr. Barry has approved that, and it would be our recommendation to approve it. It will, obviously it's going to require parent permission for them to go, and if those parents want to give their permission to do that, I don't think we should stand in their way.
The only thing that I ask, well, first of all, I'm not gonna stand in your way of doing this. This is fantastic for these kids. And some time back, gosh, I guess it was right after 9/11 when we were like flying and things, the out-of-state travel was an issue. I'm honestly, personally still scared to death to get on an airplane. I don't care what you guys wanna do. I'm not gonna stand in the way of a parent deciding how they wanna transport their child to Florida. But I think that we should accept and require a full liability waiver. That's really the only thing that I stand, asking for, so that if something does happen or if the kids do get sick, it's truly the parents making the decision to do this. I don't want it to be on us.
And they're more than willing to sign whatever it takes to
How
get
about a
these
blank
kids
check?
done. I've been asking for that for a long time, but.
So, any other questions regarding this event? Rachel's here, she could answer your questions if you have any. Can you bring us back a national championship?
Well, we did in 2018.
I know.
And that is the plan, is to do it again.
How long have you been sponsoring this?
I've been the varsity coach for 17 years now.
Yeah, I thought it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
All right. I'd like to make a motion that we allow these kids to go to, it's Orlando, right? Yeah, Orlando to compete in the National Dance Team Championship. Need a second, Mr. McCormick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Enjoy your trip.
Thank you. And it's my birthday today, so thanks.
Well, happy birthday. That didn't cost me much.
That's the best birthday present you could ever give me.
All right, last item.
Last item is to reschedule our February 15th board meeting to the 16th to avoid President's Day holiday.
Motion to approve the recommendation for the rescheduling of our next month meeting. Mr. George, second. Mr. Moore, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Hey, Mr. Callahan, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, time for comments from the board if you'd like to speak.
First of all, I want to thank JB for getting me wired in, and I have to re-emphasize some of Dr. DeBray's comments. We've got to stay in contact with our state legislators whether they're in the Missouri House or the Missouri Senate, contact all of them that are based in St. Charles County to tell them what our needs are, and they are the ones that can fix the problem at the state level. So whether the funding comes out of a robust economy in the future, or in the near term, a stimulus package from the federal government that's parked out to the states. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moore? No comments? Mr. George?
Again, echoing, we need to keep in touch with our legislators. They're the ones that are making the rules. In honor of Dr. King's holiday yesterday, I'll quote one of my favorites from him, we must live together as brothers or perish together as fools. And I think that's kind of poignant right now. It seems like the division is going on. I never thought I would have seen something that happened like 2 weeks ago, but we need some nurturing, I guess. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. McCormick?
Did you say your daughter's on the team?
She is. Mariah is a freshman on the team.
That's crazy.
I
I remember her, you know.
Yep.
I just wish I was going. So that's all I got.
Mr. Emmons?
I just want to congratulate everybody on making it into the second semester of the year, getting through 2020, and I'll just kind of reiterate and echo what I've heard from a lot of the board members and administration, that everybody is very much appreciative of all the hard work that's been done to get us to this point, and obviously the hard work that's going to continue for the next several months, and frankly for all educators throughout their careers. So thank you all for that, and welcome to the second semester.
Yep, a new starting line. So again, thank you to everybody. I'm not going to continue to speak. That's all I have. And we have no closed session tonight. So I need a motion for adjournment. More. Second. George, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.